name again is Joe Kormos. I spend a lot of time dealing with parish health. I've been asked to talk tonight about what is a healthy parish and how do we assess healthy parishes. And just to give you a sense that I can take instructions, that's what I'm going to talk about. I've also been asked to sort of try to keep this to about an hour. Hopefully I'm just as good at that instruction as I am at the context of where to go. I want to thank all of you, both at home, watching at home, and those here, for your invitation to speak to you about my favorite topic, for your time today in listening and watching the video, for your past labors, because I know that the people that are looking at this tape and who are here today are active, current or potential leaders in their parish. And the most important thing I'm going to thank you for ahead of time is your willingness to consider new ideas. That is not easy. Since you're going to listen to me for a little bit of time, I'll give you just a touch of background on myself. I have a degree in engineering. I spent most of my career dealing in marketing and strategy, 10 or 15 years doing consulting with organizations, and for about the last 11 years I've been working in the area of parish health in the Orthodox Church in America. My personal experience is in old and new parishes, and that particularly, I would say, in the OCA is an important factor, because there is a strong demarcation in the attitudes and the activities and the ideas between very old parishes and newer parishes. I've had a chance to serve the church in many different roles. We won't go into all of that. Probably the key reason I write a newsletter, I develop assessment tools, which we will talk about tonight, workshops, webinars, etc. If you're looking for one good reason to listen to me, I've probably done 25 webinars, 35 local conferences, multi-parish conferences, and I've been to something like 93 parishes in the past 11 years, and I have tried to pay attention to what's going on. Not in every case was I doing a workshop, but I've tried to always pay attention to what is going on and how people behave, and so I'm here tonight to share my perspectives on what healthy parishes look like, how parishes that are interested in becoming healthier might take some steps to get started. So here's the outline of where we're going to go. I'll offer some background as to why this whole idea of healthy parishes is important. I'll give you some thoughts as to how I might go through with a parish in motivating them to become interested and more interested in the difficult task of living a new life in Christ within their parish. We'll talk thirdly about some general or specific attributes of healthy parishes, and then we'll try to roll that into the heart of the matter, which is a model, an 8-part model that is used to help parishes walk through and explore the dimensions of what they're doing and what they're not doing to help assess their maturity. This is essentially a maturity model in the road to becoming a more effective and more healthy Orthodox parish. And then we'll try to save a few minutes at the end to talk about where this can all go wrong, what some of the implementation problems and steps are that you might be prepared for. So, giving some background, I hope this is obvious, but it may not be. This is a difficult time to be a Christian. I'll let that sink in. We all know Christianity, Christian, church have now become not even neutral terms. They're way too often, they are negative terms. We fight the drivers of secularization, typified by the Sunday morning soccer game, but there are so many others that seem so important to us that get in the way of our life with Christ. The concept of giving commitment, membership in something is foreign to those who are coming up through the ranks of life. When you're as old as me, it's relatively normal kind of thing. The younger the potential member, the less likely they are to be interested in commitment. Our behavior is scrutinized continually in oh so many ways. And transparency in everything we do is required, and that's really not a bad thing, but it can mean differences in the way we operate and the way we behave. So I would suggest to you that no matter how large the parish you're in, or for those here in the audience who might be going to parishes in the near future of their lives, no matter how large that parish might be, I would suggest you are no more than 5 or 6 families away from a serious impact, whether they move to a new city, whether they die, whether they get their noses out of joint in some way. It is very easy for the seemingly healthiest of parishes to make a significant turn. So we, as I say here, are at a hinge point. Every parish can become healthier, but every parish, no matter how strong it may seem to be, has the very real potential to become less than healthy. And in considering that, we need to remember that, as C.S. Lewis said, the greatest illusion, the greatest danger, is the illusion that all is well. Do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment. And let's take our head out of the sand and realize that this is an extremely critical time for us. Now, as you go to a parish, if you're in parishes and viewing this video, here are some of the symptoms I often find. The ones you say, you ask people, what does an unhealthy parish look like? They'll say, declining worship attendance, falling membership, but there are others. An aging parish, lost youth. We have some youth here with us this evening. Members in name only. Minimalism and in stewardship and discipleship. What's the least thing I can do, Father? Don't get in the way of my life. If you're hearing that, these are some of the challenges. Many clubs, but few ministries. I went to a parish some years ago, and I asked what ministries they had, and they said, "What's a ministry? What's a ministry? We have clubs. What's a ministry?" New members rarely become active. Fading fellowship, visitors come once, but don't return. Those are among them. There are other symptoms. But here's the good news. Any parish can become more vibrant. And I'm hoping all of us are familiar with the person who said this, Father Thomas Hopko, really one of the important theological figures of this last century. Okay? Father Hopko, though, has a caveat. Yes, any parish can become more vibrant. All that is required is that its members, beginning with its leaders, be firmly resolved to have it so. So it's not really quite that easy, is it? And the other thing I'll tell you is that there is no known parish vaccine, parish health vibrancy vaccine. There's no pill that I can give you. And if I were to tell you you can do this without hard work, you wouldn't believe me. You'll need to learn new skills, do additional work, give more money to your parish probably to help fund the things that need to be done, to think differently, and to give up some sacred cows. Now, normally, if I go to a parish, one of the fundamental things I'll do is refer to them, and this might be in the early stages before we've decided that we want to go on a journey together to exploring what a healthy parish is. And the thing I often ask is, how many of you are founders, parish founders here? Now, in the OCA, we have many new relatively newly minted parishes. I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time when our parish in Cincinnati, Ohio was founded. But most people, when you ask that question, anyone here a founder of your parish? No names, few hands go up, okay? And then I try to remind them that they are the inheritors, they are stewards of something, and we talk then about the parable of the unprofitable or single talent steward. What happened there? The master gave 5 talents to one of his servants, 2 talents to another, and 1 talent to another. When he returned, we all know what happened. The first one said, I invested this, I worked hard. Here are your 5 talents, and I give you 5 more. Well done, good and faithful servant. The one who received 2 talents, the same. But of course, the single talent steward said what? I knew you to be, I always like this in certain translations, and hard master. Reaping not where you sow, or something like that. And here is your 1 talent back. I buried it. Here is your talent back. And the master said, you wicked and slothful servant. Has anyone called you slothful before? It doesn't sound good, does it? You are the recipients then, whether you're the parish priest, parishioners, you are the recipient of what has been passed on to you, and you are expected by the master to create a return, create a return for his kingdom. So, sometimes, with that little story, we get people's attention, and either on that day or later at a subsequent visit, we get started on a journey to a healthy parish. And what I find is that motivation is very important. It's extremely important. The parable of the single talent steward is always a good start, but asking good questions is sort of the role I try to play with groups. One of the things before I get into those good questions is whether you're aware of the law of the buffalo bridle. Does anyone know that? Of course not. I didn't make it up. I read it in a book that probably most of us would not have seen. And that law goes like this. You can make a buffalo go just about anywhere as long as they already want to go there. So the bridle only works if the buffalo already wants to go there. And so insert parish. You can make a parish, help a parish go just about anywhere as long as they already want to go there. Because I, and even you as the priest, if that's who you are in the audience, can't alone do that. So fundamentally, we're looking to create motivation, and the foundational question is what Jesus asked the paralytic at the well of Bethesda, pool of Bethesda. It always strikes me as being a little odd, isn't it? Do you want to be made well? Most parishes have no sense really of what wellness is. And if they came to know it really, they would not necessarily immediately want to be made well. So the goal of some of these other questions is to try to unpack that for them. The one I usually start with is, how long do you want your parish to live? What do you think the answer is?
Final judgment.
That's a little more sophisticated than someone said final judgment. The answer is always, immediately, forever. If they were a choir, I could go like this, and they would all say, forever, right? Well, I then usually, and I had to take the slide out because I'll probably have too many to begin with. I usually show a picture of a young child, usually my granddaughter, and say, what does forever mean? Of course, it has no real meaning to us. So just think if the smallest child in your parish, as we see one in the front row here tonight, if we're building a parish that is not for him or her, him, not for him, but for his great-grandchildren, that's forever enough for us to try to comprehend. That's a big, big job. So we can't be thinking of ourselves, how does this work nicely for us? We're thinking about multiple generations forward and building something that can last. What is the purpose of this parish? Why are we here? Now, I'm not going to take the time normally, if I were with a parish, we would sit down and answer those questions. We would try to talk about those. And many parishes realize that it's been either a long time since they talked about it, or they really never talked about it because the parish was started with an implicit assumption that it was here to serve us, to serve ours. When we ask who owns this parish, I went to a Ukrainian parish once in Canada, and we were having a wonderful day, and I asked them, well, who owns this parish? Just about, they had previously said, we want to live forever. Well, we do. And then the funny thing came over the crowd, and the priest started sliding down in his chair, and they all go, oh, well, no. We went through a variety of issues. Christ owns this church. Well, we landed on that. Well, you know what is maybe, in a sense, a better one? The owner of a parish is its mission. The owner of a parish is its mission. The little slice of the world that we have come to deal in that we need to live up to. That's what owns and defines our decisions and where we're going to go. Certainly, do we want to grow? That's often a rhetorical question. Oh, yes, we want to grow. Of course. Why? Why do we want to grow? Well, often if people are being honest, and they usually aren't because they kind of know the answers that are supposed to happen in a group, but they don't really say what they would be thinking of on their own. Well, we sure could use more people to help pay the bills here. We need, it just doesn't feel right to have the church be empty like it didn't used to be that way. Someone might say, oh, I need a ride to church. Hopefully we can grow to find some new people. Somebody might live by me. If we think about the early church and its success, what motivated them? Simply put, and I won't go into great detail here, gratitude for having received the message of Jesus Christ, responsibility to pass that message on, and a real concern for those who lived outside the church. That's what has to motivate us if we say we want to grow. Oh, is our parish growing? Well, then we can have all kinds of answers, and many parishes are growing. Many, by the way, growing in this context, usually I'm speaking quantitatively, but we also might take a left turn to talk about, are we growing qualitatively? Are we doing the fundamental things that cause us to grow in Christ? And here's another good one. Do you believe that you have a role to play in this? Because I tend to think that when I go often to parishes and talk about this, people will stroke their beards, nod their heads, smile, be very excited about what we have to do, but they don't really see it as being something they're expected to do, that they have a job, that it starts with you, and if you then buy into that you have a job, that you have a role in all of this, then the question that's useful, it's not always, you don't maybe always like the answer, but it's good to get it out on the table beforehand. Well, what are you unwilling to do? In what way in our parish are we unwilling to change? What new things are we unwilling to do? What things are we unwilling to stop doing? And we could go into many aspects of things that go on. If you talk about dieting, what people what you often hear, the bromide, I'll do anything to lose weight except diet and exercise. And of course, those are the only two things that really work. Okay? And so in the context of a parish, what are you unwilling to do? Oh, are you unwilling, if you come to church twice a month, are you unwilling to come 3 times? If you come only to Divine Liturgy, are you willing to come on feast days in some way? Are you willing to come to Vespers? Are you willing to come to some other services? If in doing what's necessary to be a healthy parish, we need to start new ministries, are you willing to step up and give additional money? Are you willing to participate in those new ministries? If you're in charge of something, are you willing to move over and let someone else do it? And perhaps doing it differently. Oh, are you willing to learn your faith? I went to a parish and I suggested that their review of the model, we'll talk about in a moment, resulted that in general they felt like they had very poor formation as Orthodox Christians. They didn't really understand their faith. So I suggested that why don't we all sign up to read in the next 6 months one book about the Orthodox faith. Could be about the Fathers, could be a survey book covering various aspects. One fellow, he was one of the pillars of the community, raised his hand, I would never do that. I would never read a book. I would never take my time to read a book about the Orthodox faith. Well, that's disappointing. But at least we know the boundaries. And if we're going to go then on a little ride together, it's good to know ahead of time what we as a community are really unwilling to do. Are we unwilling to ask someone for a commitment to something? Let us commend ourselves and each other and all our lives unto Christ our God, we hear every Sunday, and more. How can we commend others? How can we help others to do what they need to be doing? Are we willing to invite someone to our church? Oh, I wouldn't do that. No. Oh, fathers, you're not off the hook either. Are you willing to rethink the way you deliver sermons, the way they're structured, the rhetorical approaches that you use so that they can hit home better? Are you willing to communicate differently? The healthiest churches that I go to have a very active use of either social media or certainly emails. In my parish, I get 15 at least emails from my priest a week. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. But you know what? I never forget about the parish from Sunday to Sunday. And I always know that the parish is there for me and loves me. How about trusting a little more, Father? Let's hold the questions till a break. How about trusting a little more and learning to delegate, Father? So let's talk about healthy parishes. If we have been successful in motivating people to be interested in the idea of a healthy parish, then what I usually ask them to talk about is, well, what is a healthy parish? What does that look like? And of course, at this point, you get rather predictable answers. Healthy parishes have young people. Healthy parishes have children. Healthy parishes are growing. Healthy parishes have, there's a few other obvious ones. There's nothing wrong with those answers. But in order to try to get to something a little, and by the way, I love this picture. I think it could have been done by Norman Rockwell. All right? Now we could talk about whether this represents a diversity in the community, but this looks like a set of people who are in America and are Orthodox. what I do is I ask people, well, sometimes it's easier to talk about what you don't like. So what's not vibrant? Tell me about a not vibrant parish. In other words, what are all the things that are outside this circle here? Well, I did that with a group of priests, and it took them about 5 minutes to come up with this long list. I'm not going to read them all to you. But this can be helpful. Not vibrant parishes hide bad news. They're risk averse. They're isolated. They feign harmony. There are gatekeepers. It's a one-man show. They fear change. They're competitive turf protectors. They cling to their jobs and don't want anybody else to do anything. They're liturgically unprepared, and we can go on. From that point, then, generally will ask, where would you look to get some ideas, some hints about what a healthy parish looks like? And I try to get them, usually their ideas on where you'd get hints aren't that good. But one of them, as I shared with a few of you earlier today, is the cross. We have a lot to learn from the cross about healthy parishes. First of all, the vertical dimension of the cross shows us, and we all pretty much understand this, that the purpose of the parish is to connect us with God and His kingdom, to help us as individuals and collectively to know that. But we must remember the horizontal dimension of the cross that says, these are our arms embracing others. We're also here to share God's love with others and to bring others to Him. So that simple idea can help us begin thinking about what is a healthy parish. We learn from the fathers. The simplest one, St. Cyprian of Carthage. One Christian is no Christian. If one Christian is no Christian, you ain't no Christian without a parish. We can't be having personal liturgy at home with the New York Times or whatever. Oh, Father, I was just too tired today. One Christian is no Christian. And of course, eventually, it usually isn't the first thing that comes out of people's mouth, is Scriptures. Well, of course we can learn about healthy parish from Scriptures, and the fundamental place to look is Acts 2:42 through 47. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, fellowship, breaking bread, and the prayers. Not just prayer, but structured prayers. Everyone was filled with awe, the many wonders and signs. All the believers were together, held everything in common. They sold their property to give possessions to others, to anyone who had need. Every day, they didn't just do this on Sunday. We met in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together, praising God and enjoying the favor of all people. And what happened? Because when I do these parish health workshops, I'm usually introduced as the parish growth guy, okay? Because what we really want is not a healthy parish, we just want more people, okay? What happened? What is the cause and the effect here? It's fairly clear. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. You can look at Colossians 3:12. I'll just read the red words: compassion, kindliness, lowliness, meekness, patience, forbearing, forgiving, perfect harmony, love, peace of Christ, thankful, the word of Christ dwell in you richly, admonish one another. Yes, that's, I think, a quality of a very healthy parish if you can get to that point. It's not easy. With thankfulness in your hearts. Usually someone is able to say, I have to sort of see this, but the creed, what do I mean? Where is the creed? What do we mean in the creed? Well, it's obvious. We say it every Sunday, okay? But we just say it, right? One, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. If the model we're going to go through in a few minutes is too complex, It has 8 dimensions, etc. Just remember one Holy Catholic and Apostolic. Oneness of mind, oneness of purpose, unity of direction. We have a common direction and vision and identity of what we want to be. Holy. What does holy mean? It means to be set apart. It means we don't look like the Kiwanis Club having a pancake breakfast. We're doing holy things here, and only holy things that set us apart from the secular world. And that's significant. Holy. That applies to us as persons, probably as how it's meant in the creed, but certainly as communities. Catholic. What does Catholic mean? Well, usually someone says universal. That's not really accurate, is it? It means of the whole. It means fullness. And so Father Schmemann, in one of his books on the liturgy, mentions that one of the unique qualities of Orthodox parishes compared with even Roman Catholic parishes is that the parish is expected to represent the fullness of the church. We don't get to say, we're not into loving the poor here. We don't do that. We're not into welcoming others, into hospitality. We're not into coming on time. The entire set of ministries and roles that represent the fullness of Christ's body is what we need to do. Apostolic. What does that mean? It means to be sent forth. And so we don't get to look inward upon ourselves and be satisfied or dissatisfied. We need to go forth and bring this church, the word of Jesus Christ, to others who have a great need for it, because we have gratitude, responsibility, and concern, just as did those in the early church. So, fundamentally then, the transition we're looking at is from culture to gospel. I didn't make this slide up to deal with Greek Orthodox parishes. I made this up when I went to another ethnic group, okay? But the transition to go from culture and to seeing ourselves as a culture-centered community to gospel is incredibly hard. And these are the words of a priest, an OCA priest from some years ago. When we asked in a survey, what's the number one problem facing your parish? Acquiring a vision of life as a vibrant parish rather than a recycle of previous experiences, overcoming old attitudes about why they exist. We exist to make Christ real in our lives. Now, why root causes? I won't dwell on these long. Unwilling to change. I suggest that as Orthodox Christians, we have little or no competency for intentionality. We are not used to actively working to improve or change our parish. We come and we listen, but we often don't do. We're isolated and insulated. We have, by and large, no idea what they're looking for out there or how to talk to them. The apostles understood this. They spoke in terms that Greeks would understand when they were talking to Greeks. They used the language of Greek philosophy when they were there. And we lack updated, relevant models of healthy parishes. Now, here's what tends to happen, in my view. When a parish is in decline, at first everything seems fine, and that lasts for a while, even though there's something eating at your stomach, right? And then there is it becomes obvious, but there's still a sense of denial. No, I think that's probably just an aberration. But then what happens, once we get past denial, we assign blame. And to whom do we assign the blame? You got it, fathers, to you. Yes, to the priest. And what do we do next? In most parishes that I encounter, you know what they want to do? Let's get a list of the people that don't come anymore. Or let's figure out some way to find people just like us. Because that would not require any change, and we could all talk about the same kinds of things we talk about. It wouldn't be uncomfortable in any way. Well, in the idea of attracting replacements, that generally doesn't work. The idea of rekindling people who have left, I often say to them, they've made their choice. They don't like you. All right? They're here for, unless you can show them some phenomenal difference to why they left, they're not likely to come back. So what happens is then we grab an answer. It usually, there is no consensus. More people jump for ship and we turn further inward. What we'll do now is we finally, after much preliminary, have gotten to this model idea. And I'll walk you through that a little bit. It's not going to be in the same way we do it in a parish. We're not going to really fill out the model. But let me just give you a little bit of background on this. When I first started working in the OCA, in what we called a parish health ministry, I quite obviously am not ordained, had not been in the seminary, had some respect, I think, but it was clear to me that we needed some sort of structured way to go about this. And it couldn't be just Joe Kormos and his bag of opinions. So what I did, one of probably the top 10 ideas I've had in my life, I have to say, because it worked out, it was good. We brought together from one particular diocese for which I was working, a diocese that had probably 70 or 80 parishes. We could find 13 or so that were either growing or clearly not declining. I brought the priests from those 13 parishes together and we talked. I wasn't completely sure where we were going to go with this, but we talked. And the first day we asked these priests to talk about what are we doing? What are you doing in your parish? What seems to be working, Father? What are you doing? That took almost a whole day. And I told them then to go home that night and to summarize what they do and what they had heard into 4 or 5, 6 different kind of topical areas. And come back the next day. And come back they did, and we put those topical areas, and you've all been to probably workshops where we move around Post-it notes on a board, and that's what we did. We found that everybody was talking about the same things, and we could easily categorize these into 8 areas. And these are the areas, I won't go through these now because we're going to go through them in greater depth in a second. This is what we call our parish inventory model. All right, now let me say one thing for the tape and for all of you. There are other Orthodox models. One by my very good friend, Father Jonathan Ivanov, called Orthodox Natural Church Development. That is also a very good model. So I'm not offering, I was asked to come and deliver this talk. I'm not competing with what Father Jonathan is doing. This has some nice qualities to it. His has also some very nice qualities to it. So this is not dueling models day, okay? One of the things I'll just say about parish applicability, I think it works for parishes in peril, parishes in early decline, plateaus, and healthy parishes that are desiring to be vigilant. And I think it also has a role in pastoral transitions for a parish to assess itself prior to or immediately after having received a new pastor. The point of the 8 areas, and this, I think some of these graphics may have been shown up in the other model I mentioned, is called the minimum barrel. So we've got 8 areas here that you can kind of see, and we'll go through those in greater depth. But the point is, it's like a barrel. What do I mean by that? A barrel with different heights of the staves. And so the idea is that the amount of water that can be held by the barrel is controlled by the shortest stave. Now, I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a second, but essentially, the idea of the model is to try to come through with a sort of structured review of things that are going on. And as I think I said, maybe I said already in this tape, but said to someone else, people don't know what they don't know. And in parishes, if we don't know what to do, we do what we know. We keep on doing it. So part of the point of the model is as a didactic sort of teaching tool to say things that they may not have ever heard of. And so the idea is that by going through in a variety of ways, usually in a group, and sort of scoring themselves and compiling the scores together, you can get to a point where you see what is the strength, purported, believed to be the strength, and the weakness of the community. So the way I suggest that they do it is we go through each of the 8 areas, and I ask them to score it from 0 to 4. A 0 being what I call unconsciously incompetent. We didn't even know this was part of being a good parish. We're incompetent and we didn't even know about it. A 1 is that you're consciously, yeah, we knew it. We knew about this, but we haven't worked on it. We don't really want to work on it, whatever. Consciously semi-competent, we're working and there's signs of stuff that's kind of starting to stick. Okay, in this area we can see, we can grade ourselves as that we're trying. Good behaviors and practices prevail, but we need to continually remind that's a consciously competent. We know what we should be doing, and often we do them, but if push comes to shove, we'll just pretty much let it slide. We'd be just as happy not doing it. And getting to a 4, and at least in my mind, is unconsciously competent. Good behaviors and practices have been baked in. So, all right, let me go through each of these 8 areas, and we can do it fairly quickly because we're not going to score it. And then I'll give you a few hints about implementation. So, each of the 8 areas, and there is a full version of the model on a couple of websites actually that can be downloaded. The model has more information than what I'm going to show you here. It also, for each of the 8 areas, has metrics and has discussion questions and has other aspects more than what I'm going to, but this is kind of the way I would go through it with a group. And what I do is I'd ask the group to read the entire model ahead of time, but then we talk about it. So, focus area number 1 is a gospel-centered vision. A sense of, there are 3 or 4 sub-areas in each. A sense of purpose and identity, an atmosphere of excellence, and parish self-awareness, understanding who we are and how others see us. So, if you were a group, we would go through each of these questions and simply ask you to contemplate them. As a parish, we clearly understand our reason for existence, to serve the living God and share our love of God with others. How are we doing on that as a parish? Consider that. Our parish is not a club or cultural center, self-absorbed or passive. An atmosphere of striving and humbly offering our best pervades the community. A sense of effort, energy, and journey is apparent. We're not just surviving. Our parish vision is made concrete with a set of specific tailored ministries. Our parish budget reflects an orientation of improvement, development, and excellence. We care about delivering our light to the neighborhood or community. Usually, I'm surprised it wasn't on this list here. Usually one of them says that I'll go through, people in our neighborhood know us for something more than food. So having offered those dimensions, subdimensions of this area, then I just simply ask everyone to score from 0 to 4 this particular area. So it's not hard. Vibrant worship, liturgical preparedness, congregational participation, effective preaching. Joyful ascendant worship is at the center of our life. This is what we primarily do. We work hard to enhance the beauty, power, and zeal of our efforts to glorify God. We keep worship fresh, contagious, yet dignified, enlivening, holy, joyous, and peaceful, and thankful. We come to church more than on Sunday. We come to church on time. Ooh. Preaching is edifying, uplifting, nourishing, challenging. Enlivens the worshiper's understanding of holy tradition and the gospel. Worship is better attended than administrative, social and fundraising events. So again, grade your paper 0 to 4, what you feel. And again, so what we do is we compile all these numbers, and then we go back and find the area that people want to work on, and then we pull that apart in greater depth. Shared leadership, delegating responsibility, leading an effecting change, functional structures, open financial practice. Lay leaders see themselves as leaders of a Christian community who are co-responsible under the rector's guidance for the health and vibrancy of the parish. This is a decent, in my opinion, description of the mission of a parish council. Parish councils are not about bills, budgets, and buildings. Yes, that is an aspect of what they do. Understanding the mission and the direction and the vision is the fundamental role of leadership bodies. Leaders do not see themselves as parish business managers, owners, disinterested commentators, or critics. Leaders lead and follow and model good Christian behavior. The level of structure in our parish is consistent with the kind of parish we want to become. If we're serious about wanting to grow, then we probably need a structure that will allow us to grow and will fit that growth. Open communication. So this is not just about your newsletter. We work to develop a culture of consensus about matters important to parish life, find solutions best for the body and not us personally. Important decisions are communicated well, clearly and appropriately. People who disagree are given that opportunity and they're listened. We look for people on the margins and we search for other ideas to improve those. Number 5, I think, authentic community. An atmosphere of love, incorporation mechanisms, connectedness to the larger church, and appropriate facilities. Christ is recognized in our midst. We've used these words before. We saw them in, I think it was Colossians earlier. We encourage, exhort, and nurture one another. There's lots of laughter in our parish. We welcome newcomers readily. We're not a closed community available by birth, kinship, or ethnicity. Christian formation, and this is often one of the lower scoring. Orthodox spirituality, whole parish education, and financial generosity. And there's 5, 6, 8 ideas here. We have a commitment to lifelong learning and personal spiritual growth. Do we see that as part of what we need to be doing in how we interact and how we own the opportunity of building a parish that can last for the great-granddaughters into her old age? Proportional giving is a basic tenet of the parish stewardship efforts. Achieving our annual budget is not dependent on fundraising or alternative sources of income. And there are others here. I'm not reading them all. Active service. And if you had to ask me what's one area that's important for a parish to adopt and work on that they may not have been working on, this would be it. to active service outside the parish to others. This includes understanding how people are gifted, what they're able to do and not do, who is best equipped to do various things, seeing that many people have active roles, and they're contributing in their area of giftedness, setting a clear and internally and externally focused ministries, having an appropriate balance between local, sometimes, it's whatever ethnic group we're dealing with. It's fairly easy sometimes to give money or something to the old country, but it's not so easy to give it to the person next door, the person that we can touch and see and experience. Each of our ministries has a clear purpose that befits a Christian community. And often this requires some pruning. In a parish that's 80, 100, 120 years old, things have crept in that probably are no longer needed or are holy. And finally, spreading the gospel, one holy, Catholic, and apostolic. We have practices and an atmosphere of evangelization. We communicate effectively outside our parish, and this is an area where I often talk a lot about websites, but we need to learn to communicate effectively. The purpose of a parish website is not to communicate internally. This is your identity billboard. And if you're expecting to attract them, you have to speak in a way that makes them feel wanted and welcome, and not like they have to have certain qualities that they don't have. So then, having gone through 8 of these, then there's usually some sort of evaluation sheet. We score it, and then we get to something like this. So, if in fact, and we discussed that, it's not necessarily my opinion that you have to work on the lowest scoring area. In some cases, I've recommended for parishes to work on the highest scoring area. This is something you do pretty well. Maybe let's work on doing it really well. Now again, Catholic meaning fullness. We have to do all, we can't neglect, but we can't work on everything at one time. And that's something I probably should have said. That is the fundamental point of in my opinion, the model. It's not to come up with a score. It's not to compare ourselves with other people. It's simply to focus our efforts. We didn't get like this overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight. We're going to fix it one area at a time. And so where can we all agree? Sally might think it's vibrant worship. John might think we need to work on community. Bob might think it's active service. We've come together, and by this, there's an implication we have a group of people who are interested because we've motivated them. What can we decide on we're going to work on, and not everybody's going to win, right? We went through this structured approach. We talked about it. So, okay. So whatever you decide you're going to work on, then you want to pull that one apart. Go back to that one. Discuss, well, why did you score that low? Who are the people that scored that low? Why was it scored so lowly? What were you thinking? What did you see on this paper, on this list of things that made you feel uncomfortable about our parish? So that's how I generally go through the model. And usually it works fairly well. I will never suggest that this is a panacea. It's simply a tool. It's simply a way to get started on something that probably is bothering you and a lot of people in the parish. Talk about implementation just a moment. Once you've decided on what you mean by why this area is bothering you and why you've all agreed on it, then we need to structure something into a goal. You'll get the slides and you'll see a few of the kinds of goals that people have put together. Leadership. If leadership is the area you want to work with, by mid-year we have defined 5 Christ-centered ministries and found a leader for each. Or in 2000 whatever, our parish council will identify its top 3 obstacles to more effective meetings and address them. The next year, under vision, we'll build a defined concept of our future, grounded in the gospel and in the reality of parish values and resources. What do we want to look like in 5 years? And over 75% of the people will have participated in this, and broad endorsement will have been achieved. Would that be a great goal to undertake in a parish? That seems like it's listing? I think it might be. Yes?
Which one were you just, can you back up?
I was reading this one under vision. I also read this one. I mean, each of them have their own aspect, but I was trying to just give you quickly some examples of what a goal might look like. All right? Now, a lot of times people will read these and go, well, let's just pick a goal and let's go. You know, so that's one of the problems with all of this kind of thing. So let me move on. We're not going to be able to comprehend all of this. Is a very wordy slide, obviously. When you pick a goal and you say the goal, I would suggest you also think in terms of why do we have this problem, and what have we tried to do in the past that didn't work? And I always think in terms of obstacles. So if your goal is establish a local charity effort for the immediate local community within 8 months. Well, what's going to go wrong we have to overcome? Well, some parishioners are frightened by elements of the community. I tried to say that as nicely as I could. Oh, we don't have the money for that, Father. We couldn't do that. Times are tough. Belief that others are, this is always a good one on this one. Oh, other people are really doing that. The Protestant church down the street does that, or there's a soup kitchen. What could we possibly do? What could we possibly? So by listing as many obstacles, you can then, as a group, plan for overcoming those obstacles. And some of them are tough. They're not easy, but new solutions are required. Where things go wrong, well, when you go through this model, you may have 10 or 15 people. You may have 50. But you're not going to have 100% of the parish. And someone will say, well, a lot of people are missing, so I think we should ask them. So this is probably a delaying tactic or obfuscation, or it may be very honest. People are, they want everyone, they don't want to get people's noses out of joint. You're not going to get everybody. I have tried doing this as a survey on the internet, and you can do it. I'm not nuts about it. Expecting a quick fix, I think I've said this. You can't do this. Things are not going to be noticeably different in 6 months. Often people will go through the first level of the model, but they don't get to a goal, so using at a high level only. Ready, fire, aim is a typical thing, particularly for many people in parishes. I don't have time for this. I don't like talking about all this stuff. Father, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do, and we'll do it. Well, no, if you didn't participate and you don't really have a sense of why we're doing it, what we're doing it, and you don't necessarily agree, ain't going to happen. Okay, so there is a sense of wanting to jump to actions, and I get it. Problem, same old, same old. Problems often require new, tough solutions. They're afraid to rock the boat, no stretch. That's a fundamental problem with using the model. I have found that what I find to be the least healthy parishes give themselves the highest grades, which is why I don't necessarily do a lot of comparing the score of Parish A with Parish B. Because how well you understand how broken you might be, as parishes progress, they sometimes give themselves lower scores because they are now into seeing development and improvement and taking action. I got to back up to the one on the bottom here. Priest not engaged. That is the number one reason these fail. You cannot, fathers and future fathers, you cannot go through this on a Saturday afternoon and have the parish never hear about it again. Say, well, we appointed Stan over there to run this and whatever. No, you have to. It has to be in the bulletin. You have to say it from the ambo. You have to remind people. You have to not let it die, because you're affiliated with this process. It may not be your favorite thing to do. Process-oriented things aren't maybe the best, but you got to do them. Trying to do too much, select one area and not 5, and failure to engage the parish. And so, I think I actually did this somewhere very close to the 1-hour time frame. I'll just tell you that this is all about change, and you can see this here. Someone said, in all the world, there are only 3 Christians who love change. None of them are in your church. So this ain't easy. Okay, just like someone said, getting old is not easy. What is that quote? I don't know. It's not easy. But I thank you very much for your attention. I thank you for coming out tonight. For those of you at home, hopefully this video will be useful to you. Thank you very much.